Hello everyone, this is Beastly Eel here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the latest episode of Secret Invasion. Now this is the fourth episode of this series, and a lot has happened. Granted, it was the shortest episode time-wise, but a lot happened in this short little episode. So I'm going to be going off on it in bullet points, mostly because a lot of it just happened and I'm not going to lie to you, I don't think I get the order correct. But let us start from the get go. So we find out that Gaia, who is Talos's daughter, did not actually die. She was definitely shot. She actually used the machine and used it on herself, which created her the ability to regenerate. So what happened was she was able to regenerate herself back to life, and she escaped. So she then explained it to her dad later down the road. I think it was like soon after, and explained to him exactly what had happened and what the plan is for the future. And she basically wanted to know exactly what his plan was, so the scrolls could have their own planet. But specifically, scrolls could be themselves, meaning they would not have to hide themselves and be other creatures. And the dad was kind of like, "Well, we're gonna stop the head guy, and what we're gonna do is then go up to the president and be like, 'Hey, we did this thing for you. Now give us sanctuary.'" And she wasn't happy with that. And he's like, "Well, we're a species without a planet, so we're gonna have to figure it out, and we are at the mercy of our hosts." She did not like that at all. She kind of left him. All right, she didn't kind of leave him. She did leave him. We also find out that Rhodes, Colonel Rhodes, is a scroll right now. We don't know how long he's been a scroll, but he's a scroll now. We also know that um, so we knew that Nick Fury's wife was a scroll, but what we didn't know was actually he did not know his wife was a scroll. So she left the house, met with Rhodes, who is a scroll. Although we were not 100% sure of this yet, we find out later. But it was very heavily hinted because he's basically telling Nick Fury's wife that you're going to have to kill your husband and that he's going to have to die. And so she doesn't necessarily agree, but doesn't disagree either. Now, Nick Fury actually heard the entire conversation. So what happens is Nick Fury goes to talk to his wife first, and the two of them have a conversation. He basically explains to her that, hey, you know, you could pull your gun out, and we could both do this and see what happens. So they both pull out their guns and put them on the table, and they're having this conversation. And Nick Fury basically states that even though knowing what has gone on with them, um, he he would not change anything that he would do, and he thinks that that's why he is stupid in his own mind, right? That even after all this betrayal and everything else, that he still would be with her. So we find out the full story of everything else on um, how they get together. She actually took over the life of the woman that she's now is because she had a heart problem and took on her life without a single issue. But there were three rules that she had to follow. She had to make sure that the woman's body was buried at sea, which she did. She still had to be a daughter to her parents, which she did. And Nick was like, "Well, what's the third?" And not hurt you. And she apologized. And then they both shot at each other, but completely missed. And Nick Fury is like, "I don't know whether we should get a divorce or renew our vows." So they started laughing, and he goes to leave. And he's like, "Do you need help?" and everything else. And she's like, "No, no, I'm a big enough girl. I can handle myself." And then she asks him a very important question. Um, she asks him, "If you had known that I was who I really was, would you have still been with me?" And I think he answers in the most honest way possible. So originally it looks like he's going to walk away, and then he finally answers her and says, "I guess we'll never know." And I think that is probably the most accurate answer of all time because I don't think he would actually know. I think now, at this moment in time, he would say yes, but him back then, probably not. But interesting nonetheless. So we get to see a little bit of their past in 2012. So we then see that, and literally the events right after Avengers 1, and how they were together and how she knew it had to have been him that put those people together. So then he goes to deal with Rhodes, and he gets him to drink alcohol, even though. So there's a scene right before this, but right before um, Nick Fury breaks into the hotel room, and we see a scroll who then turns into Rhodes. Um, and they have an argument back and forth. And basically, Nick Fury is trying to get his job back, putting that in quotes. And Rhodes is like, no, we have footage that you killed Maria Hill. And Nick's like, you know it wasn't me. You know it was a scroll. He's like, yeah, the alien defense. Who's going to believe that? And Nick gives him a bottle of whiskey, and they have a drink together. And it has a tracking device in it, so he would know exactly where he's going at all times. So he does not get his job back, and Nick Fury leaves. Um, the president then comes to Europe, where Rhodes is waiting for him, and they go in. And Rhodes calls in the Skrull Army and says, "The president's in the fourth car." And that's when all hell breaks loose. The army comes in, they start fighting, and there's a huge war going on. The president is truck is flipped over, and he is knocked out. Talos and Fury both make it to the scene and start taking out Skrulls one by one. And then they call in reinforcements, and they get to the vehicle where the president is. Everyone sees that Talos, after being shot by the head Skrull, the general Skrull, I should say, who is now a Super Skrull, um, was actually a Skrull. Talos was a Skrull. Um, they were ready to kill him, and Nick Fury protects him and says, "No, it's not going to happen." So Talos finished breaking into the window, pulls the president out of the vehicle, and Nick Fury gets him out of there. And that's when one of the men picks him up to bring him over to where Fury is. Fury realizes exactly who it is right away and starts opening fire on him. And we find out that it was the Super Skrull all along, and that's when he stabs Talos right in the chest. It looked almost as if it was the same spot as where the bullet was. It is presumed that Talos dies. More reinforcements come, and the Skrull rebellion runs away, along with the Super Skrull. And Nick Fury leaves Talos behind to try to get the president to be safe. And it is left to the audience, basically, that Talos is dead. So, and that's the end of the episode. So a lot's going on. I did not realize that Nick Fury didn't know he married a Skrull. I thought he knew. Apparently, I did not see that coming. I really thought he knew. Not super surprised that Rhodes is a Skrull, at least in this. I can't say for sure how long he's been a Skrull, but definitely for all of this makes sense the way he was acting and everything else. Way more cockier than he would have been, but I took it as because this is technically the first time we see him. Nope, that's a lie. It's the second time we see him, but the first time in a long time that we see him after Endgame. Because the first time we saw him was in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And there was not a lot of time after Steve Rogers had died, retired. Um, so maybe he didn't change that much, but as time went on, realizing everything that's happened, he's changed. The thought was he potentially could have changed, but now knowing that that's not the case, he's a Skrull now. Um, Seeing that the president being taken out was a big thing as well. Um, I mean, I'm curious to how his wife's going to get involved, Nick Fury's wife. But also the big one too is how is Gaia going to deal with the fact that her father is potentially dead? I I, I am not confident in where I know this series is going to go, so I'm very curious at where it's going to go. Um, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, there's got to be some sort of huge conflict at the end where it's between Fury, potentially an army, versus the Rebellion Scrolls, specifically the Super Scrolls. But other than that, I mean, I don't see how it's going to get there yet, which does make the show very interesting. I will say that. A lot of this stuff I was not expecting, which I am not mad about at all. I knew a bunch of people were going to be Scrolls, but I didn't think we were going to have like big name people be Scrolls. So very interesting. Overall, loved the episode. It was very action packed. I did enjoy it. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought about this episode. Did you like it or did you not, and why? And as always, if you like the content you see, please like and subscribe below. Other than that, this is going to be Beastly Eel signing out. Have a great night.